Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Our first story is about a horrible gas station customer, but it's better not to argue with our OP. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. All was forgotten, but not for long. Years ago, I worked at a gas station. It was a day like every other when in walks a middle-aged gentleman. Now, normally, you would hear how this guy looked like a tool, or he came in swearing, but not in this story. This man looked like your average Joe. Maybe he looked a little grumpy, but it was early Sunday morning, my favorite shift for other reasons, so I could forgive a little frown. So I gave this man my usual cheerful greeting, which was answered with a short grunt. Still, at least he acknowledged I said something. Not great, but better than being ignored. As he reached into his pocket and threw his lottery ticket and some change at me. Now, nobody likes having crap thrown at them, but I had it happen before and would certainly happen again. I assumed he wanted me to check his ticket and replay it, but I figured it would be best to ask just in case. Now, only because I'd been working in gas stations for 3.5 years, I was able to guess that's what he wanted. My question, which was certainly valid, was met with the response, "Obviously, now shut up and do your job." I twitch. WTF? I stared at him. It's on. I don't know how, but I'm going to get back at him. And I haven't seen him before, which must mean he doesn't live in town. I only have moments left to get back at him, but due to the combination of tiredness and laziness this Sunday morning, I couldn't think of a clever way to get back at him. My mind was racing. Shower him with kindness? No, not enough time. Throw his money on the ground? Could do better. I was running out of time as I got his change, and then I went to the default way I deal with a-holes. I felt like I had failed. I could do so much better, and yet was left to see him out with a cliché. "Hope your day is as pleasant as you are," I yelled as he was almost out the door, thinking to myself how I just missed the perfect opportunity. That's when it happened. He turned back. He was walking back in. This was round 2 happening. At this point, I was 19. For all the insults I hurled at puberty, it threw them right back at me and hit me like a freight train. I went from 5'5" and 105 pounds soaking wet to 6'2", 175 pounds of muscle. I was not about to be intimidated by this man. He scowled, and then he went full soccer mom, demanding to speak to my manager, threatening to get me fired, etc. This went on for 5 minutes before he left as I got the final words. "Have a great day, and remember to go F yourself." It was not the greatest of wins, but I believe I finished on the upper hand. I just didn't understand how somebody could get under my skin that easily. I pushed the thought from my mind, knowing I wouldn't get in any trouble for what I said. All was forgotten. Until about 6 months later, I'm working my usual Sunday morning shift, 7 a.m. to 12 p.m., nursing my hangover from the night before. Not sure if I'm still drunk or not when in walks a customer, my head ringing because of the buzzer on the door. The man walks up and throws his crap at me, and I ignore it because it hurts to look at the light. Finally, handing the man his cash, I look up and see this man. His face. It looks familiar. No, it doesn't mean anything. I see the same people all the time. I started to feel angry at this man for some reason. I couldn't understand why this random customer was infuriating me so much just looking at me as I had change in my hand. My mind was telling my body to give him the change so I could get back to my nap, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. "Hey, are you going to do your job or just stand there?" My eye refocused. I realized I still had the money in my hand, so I put it on the counter instead of in his outstretched hand. That's not very nice, I thought to myself. As I looked up again, he was scowling, and it clicked. My eyes flashed recognition at the same time as his did. I saw him open his mouth, but I had already started to unleash what would be the round 1 knockout. "Didn't I tell you to F off?" Already reaching down for the business card with the owner/manager's number on it, I slammed it down on the counter and went back to my corner to wait for the count to declare me the undisputed champion as he walked out of the store, already pulling out his phone. I laid back and waited for the inevitable phone call I was about to receive from the owner. I smiled as I drifted back into my hangover-induced nap. And our second story. Tailgate and honk on a single-lane street? How'd that work out for you? This happened a few months ago as I was driving my work van, the biggest Mercedes Sprinter you can drive without a commercial license, around Amsterdam delivering groceries. This story takes place on a single-lane road with high curbs on both sides that takes you from one neighborhood to another. Speed limit is 50 kilometers per hour, although it could have been 70 in my opinion, except in some tight corners. Now, I've driven here so many times before that I feel comfortable doing 60-ish, just a bit faster than normal without the risk of getting caught speeding in an urban area. Suddenly, I hear a loud beep behind me, and wouldn't you know it, it's a BMW. What a surprise. I think to myself, I was quite impressed by my ability to guess the brand of the automobile because everything forward of the rear doors wasn't visible in my mirrors. The tailgating and honking continues for a little while until I spot the perfect opportunity to teach this IKEA pencil-equipped D-bag a lesson. A long, straight section in the road, for those of you who haven't been to the Netherlands before, our government loves two things: taxes and using those taxes to build speed bumps. As such, we have a wide variety of speed bumps, and this straight section was equipped with my personal favorite, the bus bypass variant. A trapezoid block just wide enough that a normal car has to pass over it with at least one wheel, but a bus can pass over it unobstructed. I've had plenty of practice with these obstacles and line up for a flawless pass while accelerating to a mind-numbing 60 kilometers an hour. The BMW still glued to my rear bumper. I pass over the obstacle without the slightest inconvenience. The oblivious BMW driver, however, hits it in the worst possible way, launching himself into the ceiling of his car and grinding his oil pan as the suspension compresses. After that, he kept a good distance. And our last story. Hit on an Army officer's wife, get demoted, and relocated. My wife recently started a job at the check-in desk at a downtown 5-star hotel. One of her shift supervisors is a relatively strong Lebanese guy. Let's call him D-Nozzle. DN. DN is a typical Jersey Shore-looking wannabe. He's got greasy hair, immaculately groomed 3-day growth, and tan skin. The funny thing is he's also pudgy and overweight, so the whole look just comes across as sad. I've met him a few times, and he's smarmy, arrogant, and treats his staff like crap. Anyway, from day one, he started hitting on my wife. He initially sent her a text explaining that he lifted her number from the HR file as he was a dedicated leader and wanted to look after his team. He texted her pretty much before and after every shift, asking her to lunch beforehand or drinks afterwards in order to explain the system to her. These texts later devolved to telling her to sleep well and lots so you can be fully refreshed at work, explaining that he wanted her looking angelic like you always do. Anyway, there's tons of this random crap, and he's always calling her pet names like babe, angel, or sexy. My wife tried to keep it professional in her replies, but it was quite clear this DN wasn't going to stop. She also always wears both her engagement ring and wedding band, so there's no excuse. To put this story into context, I'm a currently serving Army officer. As a platoon commander who's led soldiers in Afghanistan, I would say that I know a thing or two about leadership. So his claim that he was being a dedicated leader just seemed pathetic. I wanted to straight out punch this dude in the face, schoolyard style, but my wife calmed me down as she didn't want to start trouble at her new job and as a supervisor. DN could technically assign her the crappy shifts. 2 weeks ago, my wife asked me to go pick her up from work. That way she could introduce me to DN and the rest of the desk clerks as her husband. I went straight after my work, so I was in full uniform and arrived about 10 minutes before her shift ended. I walked straight up to him and introduced myself to DN. I towered a foot above him and gave him my hardest bone cruncher handshake. My voice was friendly, but my eyes were like a hawk. "G'day, DN. My wife told me all about you. She's saying how you're a great leader and always looking after her team." He reddened, mumbled something about being busy, and walked away. I stared at him all the way as he exited the room. My wife and the rest of her team all burst out laughing. Pathetic. A few days after this incident, my wife gets an email from DN with upper management CC'd. DN works with her every day, so the only reason why he would send her an email in lieu of just telling her would be because he wanted her to get in trouble from the bosses. The email explained that employees are forbidden from having personal visits during work hours, as it might reflect badly on the hotel. If she was to have someone pick her up, that they should wait in the loading area at the back of the hotel. What the F? I was super PO'd now. Again, the wife calmed me down and told me to forget it. I love her, but she can be annoyingly professional sometimes. So I sat down and plotted revenge with 4 of my army mates during our weekly drinking session. We decided that the revenge should be subtle and not traceable to me. This rules out physically harming him. We then came up with a series of events that would screw with him a period of 4 days. Mind you, I did all this while keeping my wife out of it. She would not approve. My mates and I went to an internet cafe and spent 3 hours signing up his work email address for all number of strange websites from all corners of the internet. From gay dating to armadillo appreciation, anything and everything. Some things we say I will never be able to erase from my memory. The raw internet is a horrible place, children. We surveilled him from when he left work and tailed him to his house. It wasn't hard as we had his shifts courtesy of my wife. After acquiring his address, we waited till dead of the middle of the night, sneaked into his yard, jacked his car up, and placed all 4 tires up a tree he had in his front yard. Let him puzzle that one out. Finally, my friends and I called hotel management independently 6 times at varying intervals, pretending we were guests, and complained that we saw DN behind the counter looking at inappropriate stuff on the internet. I feigned disinterest when my wife came home, excitedly telling me that DN was late for work as someone had removed his tires and that management had come to ask him a few questions, but seized his computer instead when he wasn't there and were going through his emails. A few days later, DN had been demoted and moved to a different location across town. 3-star motel owned by the same corporation. I've never told my wife my involvement. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.